Ta-da. Well, good morning this Wednesday morning. I will continue to let people in from the waiting room. This morning, we're going to talk about, for those who are restorers, we're going to kind of look at what we've got on our bench, what kind of challenges we're facing, and how we're overcoming those challenges. Then we're going to look at collectors and what collectors are doing to add to their collections and what sources they're using. I've been warned about some sources, so I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to welcome Laura this morning. I don't recognize Laura's face, but I recognize her name because she's the managing editor. Do you do the bulletin and the newsletter?
Yep.
All right. If it comes out written, it's got her.
Right. For good or worse, yeah.
That's great.
Good morning.
And the reason why Laura is here is because she's curious, I think, because people have been talking about this little Zoom meeting we do on a weekly basis, and we're going to get a mention in the newsletter, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah,
so I guess I should promote the newsletter before we go too far. If you haven't logged into the NAWCC website and seen that little box that pops up, some people it annoys, other people it's like, oh, good, they still want to share information with me. If you sign up for that on a monthly basis, you'll get a newsletter, and they are very informative about what's going on, little short stories and stuff. It's a nice tie-in to the NAWCC national headquarters there. So, holy cow, somebody must have really put out a good thing this morning. We got everybody coming in. Good morning, Eric. Ed from Lexington. We've got people from all across the country now. So that's great. I wanted to cover a couple of events. As I send out the recording, I put links to all of these events so that you can find out more details about it and whether you want to participate. First, I want to vote. Chapter 35 is doing their Clocktoberfest on October 7th. That's just from 11 to 2. And please RSVP because they serve a free lunch. It's always nice to get. There's a Zoom meeting coming up that I want to promote because I know so many of us have listened to the podcast of S-Town. I always thought it was E-Town. We have an Elizabethtown south of here, but it wasn't. It was S-Town, and from headquarters, hosted by Chapter 135 on October 8th. They're going to do a Zoom meeting where Phil Morris, the chair of the NAWCC Museum Collection and Committee, is going to, I guess, give us a walkthrough or some explanation or talk about the clocks and stuff. So there'll be a link to that Zoom meeting, and it's open for everybody. So if you know your neighbors listen to the Zoom meet, to the podcast of S-Town, you might say, hey, you want to see the clocks? Here's a great opportunity to take a peek into the museum. November is going to be a busy month for a couple of regionals. November 3rd and 4th is the Mid-Eastern Regional, and that's in York, PA. And I pulled up the registration form and I looked at it, and I noticed that regionals are starting to do things differently. And I think it's an attempt to get greater attendance and to open it up and allow the public to come in. That Mid-Eastern Regional, in fact, is doing it Friday and Saturday, no Sunday. Their Friday is going to just be a Friday afternoon. It's like 2:30 to 5:30, and then all day Saturday. So that's creeping closer to a one-day regional. We'll see how that works out. It's interesting that they say that all of the regulations will be, NAWCC regulations will be applied and will be enforced. Now, I know we all talk about regionals. People get tables just so they can get in and shop early. But I noticed the Midwest or the Mid-Eastern Regional has made it the time they allow the table holders in and the time that they allow the early birds in is very close. There's only a 30-minute difference. So there, you lose the advantage of buying a table to get in and shop early. So that's good. Another regional that's coming up in November is November 10th. You got the North Coast Regional, and I think this is going to be a big watch thing because they're featuring all things Ball. And to me, when I read that, I think Ball pocket watches. But they're also doing no Sunday. They're doing a Friday and a Saturday. And both of those are going to have times where the public is available to come in. They're doing an all-day Friday, 10 in the morning to 5. And then on Saturday, they're doing only 9 to noon. So there's getting closer to a one-day regional, but they seem to be focusing on a Friday. So that's a lot of fun. And then for my friends out in Lexington, Kentucky, I'll plug one time the Chapter 140 Thoroughbred Regional, which is in January, the first one of the year. So if you're taking off from Thanksgiving to the New Year, you have to remember Lexington will be right behind when you come to work. So that's a good thing. Anybody else have any other announcements or things that are coming up? Bob or Sherry from the National?
Not that I can think of. How about you, Sherry?
No, but I'm looking forward to Jeff putting out another chapter relations meeting. I'm looking for that, but
Yeah, the last one went well, I thought. So
yeah. And the board meeting is tentatively scheduled for October 25th, and everybody's invited to join the Zoom meetings for our regular session. But we're not sure yet if our chair is going to be able to do the October 25th. So it could change, but yeah.
Yeah, he might drop in here later this morning. I think he sleeps later than most of us. So that's great.
Oh, and the results of the national were quite good. I think we talked about that before, but I think we had almost 1,400 attendees, including the public. We had 225 or 26 on public day, which was unbelievable. I know Laura was there working registration, and one of these days we're going to figure out how to speed up registration. We've been, it gets so bogged down, and one of the things we've been talking about is actually charging, like maybe instead of, I think, a $10 difference between pre-registration and registration, maybe knock it up to about 20 just to encourage people to pre-register, because you just got to put the information into the computer. And I mean, some people were standing out there for hour and a half, I think.
Yeah.
And most people were good about it, but it's aggravating to see that crowd out there that, they're looking in the mark room going, I sure wish I was in there.
Yeah. Well, either that or in the contract with the hotel or the convention center to put in a clause that says if their Wi-Fi goes down for any reason, then there's a reimbursement. And encourage the hotel to keep their Wi-Fi up. So yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, this morning, as I said, we were going to talk about what you got on your bench and what's giving you a challenge. So I'm going to call out some names here I know are restorers. How about it, Tom? What are you working on?
Not actively working on them, but I've got several that do cause me trouble, and they are both balance type escapements. One is a Boston tandem wind, and I just don't have that much experience with the balance escapements. The other is a Horology small mantle clock, which also has a balance hairspring style arrangement. I'm not sure other restorers. It just seems like there's guys who work on clocks, there's guys who work on watches, and very few that work on both. So I'm one that works on clocks and have never touched worked on clocks and have not worked on any watches whatsoever. So that balance staff arrangement is just a little intimidating. The jewels, both of these have jewels in them, and I've never gotten into that. So need some assistance with that. I've been considering reaching out to Charlie Lang and seeing if he would walk through it with me at least once or twice, but other than that, I don't really have anything on my plate that's causing me problems, but those are both my clocks, and they can happen when they happen.
When they happen. Well,
Yep.
I know, and working with hairsprings, there's lots of literature on it, and the literature is very clear in explaining how it is you need to reform, how the hairspring needs to be formed, and all that stuff. But when it comes down to actually doing it, see, if I take that on my bench, I know I'm going to be at it for hours before I get it right. But absolutely. Beverly, a new restorer. What are you working on?
Well, currently working on a little St. Thomas timbre clock, just with the 120 movement. And I think that's going okay so far. Now I'm concerned what to do with my case, which is in pretty nice shape, except the finish seems pretty dull and kind of lifeless. And I'm thinking about trying shellac. I've never done that before. I was wondering if one had any suggestions about whether mixing your own is a must, or is the can okay? And do I use a brush or a pad or what? I've looked on the forum, and of course, there are many opinions and there are responses, and there are a lot about that kind of thing. So what's the experience here in this crowd?
Are you able to make the meeting next Saturday?
I'm sorry?
Are you coming to Oktoberfest Saturday?
Oh, yes.
Bring
Yes.
the case. You will get a lot of advice. Well, no,
Free
seriously,
probably
might be
too.
able-
That I'm thinking of bringing also some metal cases that I'm not quite sure what to do with.
All
Yeah,
right.
you might be. able to
I do a lot of woodworking, and I favor the Danish oil type finishes. You can put some on a rag and wipe it on as thick or thin as you like. The first coat might soak in a little bit, but that's good because a couple coats, and then you can start putting it on a little thinner. Be very, very careful disposing of rags. Lay them out flat so they don't bunch up and get a spontaneous ignition.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dennis. I know.
But yeah, Beverly, if you bring it, like Bob said, we'd be happy to take a look at it. It may be something that you don't need to take it down to bare wood or anything, or if it's something that can just, but there's tests for whether it is shellac or lacquer, different things like that. And I know Sam has gotten into that pretty deep, and Bob as well. But yeah, we'd be happy to take a look at it.
Okay.
Sanding is generally the last resort. Unless there's deep chips or dingings in your wood finish, stay away from sanding.
Okay.
Just have a much more difficult finishing job to ever restore it back to a nice finish.
One of the toughest decisions is what to do with alligatoring. If it's something that the French polish technique, which is kind of tricky to learn, but if you're okay with the alligatoring, if it's an 120-year-old clock, and if you want it to look like a 120-year-old clock, how far do you go with that refinishing?
And last thing you want to do, if possible, is do not strip the case down to bare wood, because usually the timbres are mahogany, and they've used a filler as well as the finish to smooth it out. And if you strip it with a chemical stripper, it'll take the filler out, and then when you put a finish on it, it'll look nice, but you'll have all the grain showing, unless you fill it again, which is just a lot of work.
Yeah. Oh, and I know Eric has got a bench. His usually has some machining tools on it. Eric, what are you working on?
Trying to find a new job.
Oh.
That's my focus right now.
Well,
I took apart my my watch bench for the Maker Faire in the hopes of doing the Maker Faire with the bench, but that fell apart. But it's all still packed away. I haven't unpacked it.
Okay, I'll plug that again. If you're listening to this recording, that Makers Fair is an amazing thing to get involved with in the city that you are, and it's in a lot of cities across the country. We had a lot of people reach out, and in fact, I've had a couple of people contact me since sharing at the Maker Fair. So, how about you collectors? How are you? Oh, well, I'll tell you what's on my bench. Right now, I have a Grand Sonnery movement out of German wall regulator. And if you've ever had experience with the Grand Sonnery movement, you have a gear that goes around that has a couple of pins on it. And that pin pulls back an arm and then it releases it. And it pops the mechanism so that now it begins its routine. Well, to get that spring at the right tension so that it will kick that first striking of the quarters correct. I've had it so that it will kick it loose, but it'll only do the quarter hour. And I've had it so that it kicks it so that it will not do anything. And so what I've done is I've worked on fabricating a different spring than the one that came on the clock, so that I can do tempering and hardening and work to get that spring so that it kicks it just right, because that's the key to it. If it doesn't do that, it's not going to be a Grand Sonnery. So I see Tom nodding his head. Tom.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one of the clocks that took me the most time was a Grand Sonnery for that same reason.
Yeah,
like you say, if you get it too snug, it bounces too high, and it won't give you the right count on the quarter hour. I had one that would do one first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, but then it wouldn't do the hour. So it just extremely frustrating.
yeah. And that's what it is. You just have to get it set so it's just exactly right, and then return
a less than Grand Sonnery.
That's it. That's it. Well, how about you collectors out there? What is it that you're looking for, and what sources are you using to find them?
Well, let me show you something that I'm recently started on, if I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all, anybody, most of you had experience with Chelsea clocks, especially the military ones that they'd made a tremendous number in World War II. I got this just a couple weeks ago, and unlike most of them, this is not just a time only. It's a ship's bell, but it came in the there's a shortage of brass, so they were making them out of, I think, Bakelite. Or a composite. This thing is a little bit deeper than your average one because it's got to have the room for the gong. I think this is 3 1/4 or 3.5 inches deep, and the regular government one that's time only is, I think, 2.5 inches. But it's got some kind of a Bakelite cover, and then the rest, I think they said, is a zinc alloy. The darn thing's heavy. You can see the gong in the back, but it came with the ship's bell movement, which I've never experienced. And I don't know what the use was. It doesn't have a military dial on it. It's just got your regular silver dial that says Chelsea ship's bell. But the serial number is produced around October of 42. So it's right in the middle of the war. And when I got it, it wasn't running. It didn't have a key. So you have to take a chance that, maybe the balance is okay. Because normally if there's something wrong with it, it's the balance that's broken. And got it home, and it wasn't running. I wound it up, and it wasn't running. Open it up and play with the escape a little, balance a little bit, and there it goes. It's been running ever since. So, and it's got the little ship's bell. Let me see if I can get it to actuate here. Here we go.
Question on it not being military marked. Do you think that could have been merchant marine?
Very possible, either that or they might have switched out the dial. But in Andrew Demeter's book, he shows that particular model. I think it was the only one that was time and strike. That a lot of them do not have military dials on them. and I don't know what that means. I'm going to get onto the Chelsea forum on Facebook and post a couple pictures, and I'm sure somebody, probably Jim Dyson or somebody, will tell me exactly what the deal was, what they were. But I think at that point in time, they were probably not producing any for the commercial market. Like most of those manufacturers, it was all wartime. It was all going to the government. So it was probably used at some point. But if it was used on a military situation, it was probably some the captain's quarters or the commanding officer's office or something like that, where you'd want the bell rather than just the time. So I thought that was.
My cat wants to say hello to your cat.
Apparently ran Chuck off. So
Yeah. Well, let's give those collectors. Ed, what are you looking for for your collection?
Oh, I'm good for there. I'm working on what I've collected so far. So, that's a continual process.
Yeah. Well, and Sherry, whenever I think of you as a collector, I think of railroads.
Yeah, but right now what Glenn is after is collets. He's got 13 more to make a complete set of the Levin collets that he wants. And his main source is eBay.
Yeah. And that's right. As collectors, we're not only collecting clocks, we're collecting tools as well. Absolutely. And Bill, did you want to chime in this morning? Or you?
Oh, I've got all kinds of problems. As you well know, I'm just getting started in this.
Yeah.
And I've got 4 or 5 clocks that I'm working on right now. And it's a matter of me just learning and developing techniques to adjust and get things running, because I'll get them running for a while. Then I'll come back a couple of days later and they're doing strange things. So I enjoy listening to you guys, and I'm learning. It's just fascinating. Clocks are fascinating to me right now.
Yeah. I think one time when you logged on, I saw in your background that you had like Lionel train cars. So are you into trains as well?
I do trains. That's what I was doing. I migrate from one thing to something else. I do post-war Lionel trains, and you tell them in the background. Just the mechanical part of these things just fascinates me.
Yeah,
fitting them together, and I kind of flip back and forth. But right now, I'm focusing on clocks, and it's a full-time thing for me for learning these. And I'm just listening to learn right now.
Well, remember, there's all kinds of railroad clocks and watches out there. So as you come across them, you might tie your two hobbies together.
Well, I can't imagine doing watches. You guys who do that, I can't do these mantle clocks, like the Seth Thomas and the Waterburys and all those. I can't do those. I can't imagine a watch.
Yeah. Well, all right.
But I enjoy listening. I really, really do. I appreciate you all.
Bob, did you want to tell us about some of the watches you have? Oh, Bob's on mute. I don't know whether he can hear me. But yeah, as far as me collecting, what I've kind of started drifting into watches. And what I found is if you're looking for, let's say, an Accutron, a Space View, or Accutron Railroad approved, you can go out to eBay and you can go online, the www, and there's lots of people that have them, but there's no real sense of, if I purchase it there, it's going to be worth what I pay for it. Am I going to have to pay for a complete restoration? So what I've found recently is, in fact, I was in search for an Accutron. I went to the mart and opened it up and found if there was somebody who was like the expert on fixing Accutrons. And there's this guy, Accutron. And I contacted him and asked him if he happened to sell any of those that he's restored. That was like buying a clock at the mart at a regional. The guy who's selling it fixed it. You got some feeling like it's going to be worth what I pay for it. So that's my tip for collectors. If you're looking for Atmos clock. And you might start by going to the mart and opening it up and seeing, hey, who fixes Atmos clocks? Contact them and see if perhaps they have one for sale. And or other publications that list people who do restoration and repairs, as opposed to just jumping out into the World Wide Web and taking your chances there. So any other collectors have a tip for finding a good resource for purchasing collectibles?
Only other thing I could think of would be somebody like locally here, somebody along the lines of Charlie Wang, who does the repairs and who has a case there in his shop of watches for sale.
Yeah. Or
Several thousand.
yeah. And somebody asked me recently that they were looking to purchase a Rolex. They didn't need a new Rolex. They were looking for a restored or a good quality Rolex at not such a great price. Well, I gave him Tom Engel's name, the Rolex man himself, you know, and Tom knows so much about watches. Or go to a regional or go to a chapter meeting and say, you know, I really have been looking for, and anybody got a tip? Because we're all into either collecting or restoring, one or the other, right? Shopping for tools. Well, that's great. Well, we didn't have any of the watch guys from Louisville pop in this morning. I gave them a big ribbing because they're going to have a gathering now that Louder Than Life is over, and Carlos has come back to his apartment. They're going to have another gathering of the watch guys, and I've encouraged them to come to a local meeting so that people can collect some of the things that they have available. But if you're as long as you're plugging the NAWCC's newsletter, another newsletter that comes out, it actually comes out weekly. I think I get it weekly on an email, is from the AWCI, who the NAWCC is kind of partnering more and more with. If you can get on their mailing list, they send out a thing that says what's going on at the AWCI this week. So that's a good plug. Well, other than that, anybody else have anything else in the horological realm that they'd like to plug? Laura?
Well, if you happen to be in central Pennsylvania in October, we do have our Hops and Clocks event on October 27th. Beer tasting, food tasting, live music. It should be a good time.
Beer.
Yeah.
If you serve them, they will come.
I think so.
Well, that's great. Well, as you can tell in the tipping of my cup, I'm just about out of coffee. Somebody offered to give me a custom-made coffee cup that says "The End" on the bottom.
Let me ask a question. Me being new at this,
Yeah.
Is it a good idea for me to join the WCC or this clock organization to I guess there's a lot of information on that.
Well,
Is that
I encourage you to attend the Clocktoberfest if you're in the Louisville area, and talk with people about what's available as a member of the NAWCC.
NAWCC? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are the resources that are available through that organization to research and find out how to fix clocks is enormous. So absolutely. And you'll get clicked into people and Zoom meetings like this that say, hey, you know what, you need that? I've got that book. You want to borrow it? You know, things like that. It's always good.
Oh, I need all the help I can get right now. Sometimes I get very frustrated with it.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, with the NAWCC, they also have a lending library, so that there are videotapes as well as books that you can get on loan, just like checking it out from a library.
Yeah,
absolutely. You have to unmute yourself, Ed, if you're going to talk. Can't hear you now. Oh, but absolutely.
The forums is worth the price of admission alone. Also, if you want to lift up to the Clocktoberfest, get in touch with me. I'm going, so you know.
All right.
Again, I just need all the resources I can get. Sometimes I just don't know where to turn, and
Well,
I hate that.
this is a good group to start branching out and getting some of those resources, not only personal mentoring, but also lots of literature and things. People know I'm a reader. I'll read all about everything. So that's very good. Well,
It's fascinating.
My coffee cup is empty, so I will remind you all once again, remember, if you go and get that shot, get the flu shot. You don't want to make anybody else sick. You, when you're in big crowds, put on the mask, wash your hands, and please don't stand so close to me. We will see you all next week on the little screen. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Good to see you, Laura.
Brian.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, Sheriff.
Bye-bye.